Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take these really big fundamental topics and we try to extract the absolute most critical knowledge nuggets for you so you can walk away not just, informed, but actually equipped. Today, we're diving deep into something that affects absolutely everyone, everywhere. It's the engine room, really, of human behavior and markets. The universal puzzle of scarcity and choice.
It's everywhere.
Think about your daily life for a second. Have you ever noticed how just one, maybe seemingly small change, like say the cost of fuel going up, how that can just ripple through everything, sort of destabilize things?
Oh, absolutely. It's that immediate connection, that chain reaction you mentioned. It's universal economic linkage, really. If the cost of transport spikes, doesn't matter if it's getting produce from a farm in, say, West Africa, or imported coffee beans arriving in Europe.
Right.
The end consumer feels it pretty much instantly. Transport fares go up, food prices follow, and bang, suddenly every household budget, every student budget feels tighter. Doesn't matter where you are.
And that's the key point, isn't it? It's not just a local problem. The specific thing might change. Maybe it's curry prices in Port Harcourt, maybe it's your tube fare in London, but the underlying mechanism, it's identical. A squeeze on one resource just forces these, often painful choices somewhere else down the line.
Exactly, and that underlying mechanism, that's really what we're here to unpack today. Our mission, if you like, is to look at economics not as some dry academic thing.
Yeah, not textbooks and graphs necessarily.
Right, but as the practical study of how those everyday choices, sometimes painful, like you said, how they connect up to the huge systems we all live inside. We're basically trying to pull out the essential knowledge. Why do we have to choose? Why does it matter?
Okay, so let's build that foundation then. If we're talking about choices driven by limits, by constraints, what's the clear sort of functional definition of economics itself?
Well, at its heart, economics is a social science. Simple as that. It studies how people, individuals like you, businesses, whole governments, how they allocate resources. But the real kicker, the insight, is why they have to allocate them, why they must choose. And it boils down to one critical constraint.
Okay.
Resources, think money, time, land, raw materials, skills, they're limited, finite, but human wants, what we desire. Functionally, they're unlimited. We always want more.
Ah, okay. So economics is essentially the study of making decisions when you're under stress, like how to get the best outcome when you fundamentally cannot have everything you want.
That's it, precisely. Let's make that super relatable for you listening. Imagine you've got, a small amount of cash. Let's say $10 or $5,000, whatever your local currency is. Right now, you can use that for mobile data, maybe get online, or you can buy a decent meal, something you need. Or maybe you just save it, put it towards something bigger later.
Okay, yeah, familiar dilemma.
Right. Since you absolutely cannot do all three of those things with that one amount of money, you're forced to pick one. You have to prioritize. That simple moment, choosing the data over the food or saving over either that, is economics in action. Right there.
And that inability to have it all, that core problem, brings us straight to the real engine behind every single economic action. It's the reason we even have to make a choice in the first place, which is scarcity.
Exactly. Scarcity. If resources were infinite, if we could all have everything we ever wanted, well, economics as a field just wouldn't need to exist. Scarcity is the absolute fundamental reason for all economic decisions. It just means there isn't enough of something. Could be money, could be time, could be skilled workers, could be oil not enough to satisfy everyone's desires.
Right. And this is where I think people sometimes get a bit sidetracked. We hear scarcity and we immediately think not enough money, but it's much broader than that, isn't it? I mean, it applies to global oil reserves, sure, but it also applies to the 24 hours you have in a day. Time is maybe the ultimate scarce resource.
That's a critical point to grasp. Scarcity isn't just about money, it's a limitation on any resource needed to satisfy any want. And crucially, because scarcity forces us to choose, every single decision we make carries an inherent cost. A cost that's there even when no money changes hands. And this realization, well, it forces us to introduce probably the most powerful concept in all of decision-making, opportunity cost.
Opportunity cost, often shortened to OC, right? Okay, this sounds a bit academic maybe, but I suspect it's actually the single most practical idea we'll touch on today. If scarcity makes us pick option A instead of option B, how do we actually define the real cost of choosing A?
Right. So opportunity cost is defined very specifically. It's the value, and value is key here, the value of the single best alternative you gave up when you made your choice. You chose A. What did you lose by not choosing B, assuming B was your next best option? That lost benefit, that's your opportunity cost. It's a value measure, not just a price tag.
Okay, let's ground that again. Make it concrete. We talked about students maybe in Port Harcourt using airtime for TikTok versus students in Chicago maybe paying for Netflix. They both chose entertainment. What was their opportunity cost?
Well, for both of them, the OC was the value of whatever they considered the next best use of that money, or, importantly, that time. Maybe that money was earmarked for, I don't know, a better lunch, or maybe it was going into savings, earning a tiny bit of interest. They decided in that moment that the immediate satisfaction from the entertainment was worth more to them than the benefit they gave up.
Okay, but let me push back a bit on the universality claim. We say scarcity applies to everyone, but does it really? Doesn't say extreme wealth pretty much eliminate opportunity costs for basic choices? I mean, surely Jeff Bezos doesn't have to choose between buying a coffee and paying his rent, right? The opportunity cost there seems next.
That's an excellent question, and it's where the idea gets maybe a bit more nuanced. Yes, extreme wealth can massively reduce financial scarcity for everyday things, no question. But, and this is a critical part, it cannot eliminate scarcity of the two ultimate non-negotiable resources: time and attention. Even the wealthiest person on earth only gets 24 hours in a day. If a billionaire CEO spends 4 hours negotiating one specific deal,
Right.
the opportunity cost is the value of everything else they could have done with that time. All the other deals they didn't look at, the strategic planning they skipped, maybe even time with family they forfeited. So the nature of the scarcity might shift from money to time, but the fundamental need to choose and the existence of an opportunity cost, that remains absolute.
Okay, that makes sense. The cost is still there, it just looks different. It's measured in lost time or lost focus, not necessarily lost dollars for basic needs. And when you scale this concept up from individuals to, say, governments, the decisions become these huge nation-defining trade-offs.
Yeah.
They shape whole societies.
Absolutely. Think about government budgets. They're probably the most visible, most complex examples of opportunity cost at work. If a country like Nigeria decides to invest heavily in building new roads and infrastructure, okay, that's a choice. But the trade-off, the OC, is everything else they could have done with those exact same funds. Such as building new schools maybe, or upgrading hospitals, or investing in green energy research, or boosting security. The list is huge. Every single time a government approves funding for Project X, they are implicitly, sometimes explicitly, rejecting hundreds of other potentially valuable uses for that same money.
It really is a zero-sum game when those resources are finite. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. If we move from big government spending back to market dynamics, how does this core idea of scarcity connect to things listeners feel every day, like inflation? Price rises.
Right. This is where we connect the definition to the real-world effects. Inflation rising prices across the board is often, at its root, a direct result of widespread scarcity meeting demand. If the supply of something really essential, think wheat, maybe, or oil, or microchips recently, if that supply becomes scarce relative to how much people want or need it,
Demand stays high or even goes up.
exactly, then people or businesses become willing to pay more to get their hands on that limited resource.
So scarcity literally pushes the price up.
Precisely. That increased price is the market's maybe brutal way of allocating the scarce good. It ensures that only those who value it most highly, meaning those whose opportunity cost of not having it is the greatest, are the ones who end up getting it. So, understanding scarcity helps explain why your money sometimes buys less. It's because the things you need have become relatively more scarce.
That definitely clicks. It explains the system level. But let's zoom back into individual choices again, because those are just as crucial for people listening. Why do students, maybe in Accra or maybe in Vancouver, feel they need to get part-time jobs while studying? Why does someone risk everything they have to start a small business?
It all comes back to that fundamental drive, trying to optimize with limited resources. The student, they're facing a scarcity of money, and the opportunity cost of not having enough money might be really high. Maybe they can't afford tuition or rent or even food. So they trade their scarce time, another resource, to get money. The entrepreneur starting a business, that's a huge trade-off. They're trading the security, the predictable income, maybe the free time of a regular job.
Yeah, big risk.
For the potential no guarantee, but the potential high return of building something themselves. They're weighing that potential future value against the certain value they're giving up now.
And just being aware of this framework, this idea of opportunity cost, presumably helps you make better choices. If I consciously think about the opportunity cost, I can maybe more rationally decide if, say, the 4 hours I just spent scrolling social media was really worth more than the setting I gave up.
It gives you a clearer lens for decision-making, yes. It's a framework. When people fail to consider opportunity costs, especially the non-monetary costs like time or health or relationships, they often make systematically inefficient choices that might even harm them in the long run. Like sometimes people grab the free option just because it costs no money up front, completely ignoring that the time spent getting it or using it makes its true opportunity cost absolutely massive.
Okay, that's a really good point about hidden costs. But if economics sort of assumes we're always doing this calculation, always trying to maximize our utility given our scarce resources, then it raises a big question, doesn't it? Are human choices always, rational? Because if I choose scrolling over studying, even when I know the exam is tomorrow and failing has huge negative consequences, that feels pretty irrational to me.
That is a fantastic point. And honestly, that's right at the border where classical economics kind of bumps up against behavioral economics. Traditional economic models often do assume rationality. They assume you perfectly weigh your options, calculate the opportunity cost down to the last decimal, and always pick the path that maximizes your long-term benefit. But real life, we know it's messier. We're driven by immediate gratification, donut now versus health later. We have cognitive biases. Emotions play a huge role.
So we make suboptimal choices all the time.
All the time. We know studying is better in the long run, but the immediate dopamine hit from social media wins out. This tension between the sort of cold, rational optimization that scarcity demands and the often irrational reality of how humans actually choose, that's where a lot of the most interesting economic research is happening today.
Okay, so reflecting on our mission today then, we wanted to extract the essential nuggets about economic choice, moving beyond just definitions. What have we really locked down?
I think we've nailed down 3 absolutely core takeaways you can use right away. First, economics isn't just theory, it's the unavoidable study of how we choose when faced with scarcity. It's happening constantly. Second, scarcity itself is the fundamental constraint. We simply cannot have everything we want, whether that thing is money or time or clean air or attention. And third, flowing directly from that. Every single decision, from what you had for breakfast to huge government policies, has an opportunity cost. There's always a quantifiable value to the best alternative you didn't pick.
And understanding this framework, it really does affect everyone. Students managing time and money, presidents juggling national budgets, even the invisible hand shaping market prices through inflation. These principles are genuinely universal.
Absolutely. The discussion today, I hope, showed that the need to choose is universal. It's driven by scarcity and it's measured by opportunity cost. But, just recognizing these forces exist, that's really only step 1.
Okay, so what's step 2?
Well, for the next step in becoming, let's say, truly well-informed, you'd want to explore how economists move beyond just the philosophy of choice and actually start building practical tools, models to measure, and maybe even forecast the outcomes of these choices.
You mean turning these ideas, scarcity, demand, cost, into actual numbers and graphs?
Exactly that. It's the bridge, really, between the why of choice and the what happens next. Using the basic tools of economics, things like supply and demand curves, elasticity, the fundamentals, that's how we try to translate the abstract idea, say, scarcity, into concrete predictions about prices or wages or how stable an economy might be. That's the fundamental next level of understanding how our world actually works, quantitatively.
That's a really provocative thought to leave us with. Understanding the why scarcity and opportunity cost is crucial, but understanding the tools economists use to measure the consequences. That's the next frontier. Thank you for walking us through that, and thank you all for joining us for this deep dive into scarcity and choice. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.